We call to order the meeting of the Signal Mountain Town Council for Monday, January 27th, 2020. And we'll begin, excuse me, with a Pledge of Allegiance. Is Josh here? Is anyone here for invocation? If not, we'll observe a moment of silence after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Carol, when you're ready, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Amy Speak, absent. Councilmember Cheryl Ray,
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lutz,
Here.
Councilmember Susanna Murdock,
Here.
Mayor Dan Lang.
Here. We have no minutes to approve tonight, but Carol, do you know, at the last meeting, we approved everything except the last meeting. Is that correct? Do you guys remember? Didn't we have two?
I think we have everything but that water board meeting,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
In the last
Okay.
meeting,
Yeah.
right. And they're not, what's our procedure for getting them up on the website? Do we not have, because I don't think they're up yet. I think we're through November of 19.
I'll check.
If you can check, it'd be great to get us caught up there. All right, it's time for citizens' opportunity to address council, and our normal procedure is 3 minutes, and it's not intended to be a discussion, it sometimes is. But if anyone would like to come to the lectern and state your name and your address. No one? All right. So we're moving into the state of the town address now. I apologize, my throat is a mess. One of the duties prescribed to the mayor is the January presentation of the State of the Town report. Our town charter doesn't specify how that is supposed to happen. It could be something as simple as a paragraph, I suppose, posted on the town website. But granted the opportunity, I want to do a bit more with it. I'm not going to do an interpretive dance or anything like that, so you don't have to worry. I promise to take up only 30 minutes of your time for this evening. And what I say here, along with the documents that are to which I refer, will all be on the website in a couple of days, so you can go back over any of this. It is traditional to start the state of address for most things with some sort of a declaration. After examining the various department reports, interviewing department heads, and talking to chairpersons and members of many of our boards, I want to kick this off with a variation of a Dr. Seuss quote. I'm going to declare that, Signal Mountain, you're in pretty good shape for the shape you're in. That's straight from Dr. Seuss. My process in putting this together included requesting and receiving department head reports, as well as conducting one-on-one interviews without the presence of the town manager, so that these interviews could also serve as part of a town manager's review process, which is something we've talked about needing to figure out a way to implement, and it seemed like this was a good way to try. So we can review that later and see if that was a good idea. Under our government type, the town manager and the town attorney fall directly under the supervision of the town council, and it seemed like it was a good chance to use it as a performance review. It is traditional in State of the Town reports to do a statistical review of our departments, and I want to thank our department heads for all the time and their thorough work in putting these together. They were really helpful, all the ones we received. I'm in my 4th year as a council member and 2nd year as mayor, and at this point it is important to emphasize that the mayor does not speak for the town unless the council has spoken by resolution or ordinance. I'm still entitled to my opinion, but it holds no more or less weight than anyone else on the council. The council is also supported by boards and committees, some members that I see here tonight. Decisions by those boards aren't action items unless they're approved by the council. I just want to mention all this by way of this is how this organization functions. All of our citizen positions are unpaid, including the position of the mayor. Let's take a look now at departmental reports, starting with Parks and Recreation. It is practically impossible to estimate the number of residents whose lives are touched by the time spent in our parks, playing games, on our fields, hiking Signal Mountain trails, time spent relaxing in our parks with family. But we do track sign-ups for the various leagues. Parks and Recreation Director Jared Thompson helped with this report. Rec sports participants, we had 650 people sign up and play basketball, 450 baseball players, 200 flag football players, 200 softball players, 225 lacrosse players, 300 swim team members. The pool saw a revenue of $80,000 this year. I mentioned that it came to my attention that maybe not everybody who was coming to the door was always being charged to get into the pool, and Jared said that's something they'll try to pay attention to this year. That's really me stepping over my line a little bit, isn't it, as far as the... Perhaps. I'm confessing it, and so I'm asking forgiveness for it. Jared estimates that participation in league sports is approaching a 50-50 ratio of residents to non-residents, and this is a bit concerning. Non-resident fees supplement recreation department costs, but council will need to set those rates for the upcoming season after careful examination. It's higher than I expected it to be. The town does not own the soccer fields, but I thought it was important to note that soccer and lacrosse, I've talked to the heads of those leagues as well, they're the two fastest growing sports that our residents are participating in. The non-town Signal Mountain Soccer League had 650 participants last year, and their greatest growth was seen in their youngest ages. So that's kind of a sign of what's happening. The potential for the town of Signal Mountain to enter a memorandum of agreement with the county regarding scheduling for the Shackelford Ridge Park project has not, to my knowledge, progressed. At least we haven't talked about it as a council anymore. I do not know if it'll surface again, but understand that it is seen as potentially helping alleviate scheduling problems within town limits, though it is looked on with skepticism by those who are already using Shackelford Ridge Park. So something we're going to have to deal with. It's another issue that will need future council discussion and discovery. Moving on to Public Works, under the direction of Loretta Hopper, we collected, some of this is just interesting to hear, we collected 3,777 tons of garbage. That's a lot of garbage, but compare that with the fact that we diverted approximately 745 tons of recyclable material from the landfill through the recycling center. The center has seen an increase of materials coming in recently, and Loretta believes that is due in part to the increased population on the mountain and the current trend of home deliveries, increasing the intake of cardboard boxes. They're working with West Rock, our recycler, to add an additional compactor to the center, and it will help increase the capacity for materials. Public Works chipped 3,153 tons of brush, which was made available to the public, and kept it out of the landfill. They're offering that mulch loading by town personnel to the public, and over 170 people took advantage of that, and 72 households also requested mulch delivery. I think they thought there would probably be more that did, and that's something that's available next year. When they have a lot of mulch, you can get it brought to you, so it's a good setup. They picked up over 529 loads, that's 1,985 tons of leaves. Leaf season began the first week of November and finished the second week of January. There will be a final round in March. With the help of the 2 new automated leaf machines, they were able to continue to make progress during bad weather and at times being short-staffed. And that short-staffed theme is going to come up in every department as we go through. I didn't mention it in Jared's department, but they had positions they were never able to fill this year. And you're going to see this pop up in them all. Let's see, Public Works received, let me back up, the new equipment was helpful, and they did not have a 3-man crew, as was normal. They received no interest in the ads for temporary leaf raker positions this year, none. So they had no seasonal help. However, our full-time employees worked a considerable amount of overtime and had crews out every Saturday to keep up progress. That and the new equipment made a big difference this year toward a successful leaf season with very few citizen complaints. The Public Works crews performed pavement cuts, cracks, repairs, sealing, pothole filling, curb work to keep the town streets maintained, and it seems to have been a relatively light year of people fussing about particular street problems. Public Works employees received training in various job-related areas. And there's a lot of these, and I won't list all of them, 'cause a lot of acronyms, and we don't need to know them all, but it'll all be in the sheet so you can take a look at what they did. But chemical spill training, to inspection training, to fleet management, to environmental rules. There's just a lot of training involved. As I mentioned earlier, I did interviews with all of the department heads, and they all stressed how important the training was, and Loretta also, that super important. Employees don't always want to do it, and sometimes it even seems like it's stressing the system too much because they have to stop and take the training, but that's what happened. The new Public Works facility is working out tremendously well. We definitely work better as a team being under one roof. There's ample space for staff meetings, safety meetings, construction progress meetings, meetings with engineers and suppliers. The 3-bay garage helps them work on different pieces of equipment while still having room for scheduled maintenance on town vehicles. They were able to keep equipment in the garage and ready to respond for potential snow, which is a big help. In the past, the equipment was kept outside, and they'd have to get the equipment all working again before they could use it, so that was very helpful. And there's a sleeping quarters. You probably wouldn't get much sleep, but there's an actual place for people who are stuck and have to work for days because of snow events to sleep at Public Works now as well, and they're very happy to have that. The entire site is much cleaner and neater with the improvements made, which reflects in their quarterly inspections of the transfer station by the state, and they received no violations. The Stormwater Department, with Cliff Fight, which also comes underneath Loretta, has out of Public Works, there are 6 staff members that are certified in the Tennessee Erosion and Prevention and Sediment Control Program, but mainly 2 people cover supervision of work that's done in stormwater. The town sponsored clean water camps and did educational outreach. 2 major drainage projects were completed, one on Fern Trail and the other Wintry subdivision. Many stormwater drainage projects have been identified. A 5-year capital improvement plan has been done to help address the many projects that need to be completed. Excuse me. Drainage projects within this plan are estimated to total just over $1 million. Several of these projects involve road failure and therefore are of high priority and need to be completed soon. So this is something that's going to be on our radar. That it's the non-fun stuff that we're going to have to deal with in the future. Stormwater Department has been working to provide data to MTAS for a fee study to be done. The total buildable impervious area in the town is approximately 17.37 million square feet. If new fees are determined to be necessary by MTAS, and spoiler alert, they will be, the Stormwater Department will be able to complete more projects, and read into that. That means they are expecting that they'll receive more funds because stormwater fees are likely to increase, and that's something that's not going to make us popular with anybody. But fortunately, stormwater fees are not that high. It's a relatively small amount. Stormwater Department attended a bunch of conferences, and again, I'm not going to read all of these each time, but it's not because they're not important, it's just because they won't mean much to us because they're not not applicable to what we do on a day in, day out basis. But there's constant training going on in every department to keep our town employees up to what they need to know. Public Works had major projects. James Boulevard resurfacing was completed in August of 2019. That project required removing a nearly 100-year-old concrete roadway, replacing it with new concrete in the town's historic district. The project was a significant departure from a typical road paving job and involved many complicated factors. The road was repaved with textured concrete and colored concrete between the rails, and it should weather to keep the feel and look of the old roadway. The original trolley tracks were removed and then replaced in compliance with the State Historic Preservation Office. The town has preserved an important piece of its history, and hopefully this project will last another 100 years. The Shoal Creek Falls Bridge replacement was completed in October of 2019. TDOT had inspected the bridge and found it to be in poor condition due to the corrosion of the steel support beams. Originally, the bridge had a weight limit of 15 tons. It was reduced to 5 tons just prior to construction, and school buses could no longer cross the bridge. After construction, the bridge was inspected by TDOT and deemed in compliance with state standards. It is once again open to school buses and any other heavy traffic. After a problematic beginning, the project turned out exceedingly well. The residents were concerned, and it was a rough start getting it going. But in the end, we've heard from quite a few residents who like it and like the way it all turned out, and everybody seems to be happy about it. Public Works Department made significant improvements to many town streets in 2019. In the fall, we contracted with Wright Brothers Construction to pave approximately 4.25 miles of streets, and I'll read those quickly. Streets that were paved were Acacia Place, Alder Place, Brady Point Road, Druid Drive from Palisades Road to Green Gorge Road, Fern Trail from Druid to 503 Fern Trail, Laurel Street from Kentucky to Ridgeway and then Ridgeway to Signal, Maryland Avenue, Mathis Lane, Mountain Cork Drive, River Point Road, Shoal Creek Falls South Drive, Signal Point Road, South Palisades Drive, and South Palisades Place. Along with resurfacing the streets with new asphalt, Public Works also completed approximately 1,500 feet of trench repair on Maryland Avenue and approximately 400 feet of subgrade repair on Mathis Lane prior to paving. They were able to complete all of that work while staying under budget. They still have some funds available to complete projects that could not be done with a regular paving contract due to time constraints. With the remaining funds, they're anticipating performing subgrade restoration on the lower portion of Fern Trail and resurfacing that portion of the road which was not paved in the fall of 2019. After all of the roads were paved, they had new striping applied to all the roads, and they also striped many of the older roads whose stripes were beginning to fade. Striping was a total of about 13 linear miles. So that completes the Public Works portion of this. The library. First, some stats. Karen Glendenning did a great job getting us this report. Total circulation for 2019 was 65,256 items. That includes 57,751 items from town patrons and a little over 6,000 items from non-residents. Little over 1,400 ebooks were checked out as of December 31st. They had about almost 34,000 items in their collection, worth approximately $670,000 in retail value. Fines collected for the year were $4,217. I think someone said one time, I don't think the library collects fines. Library collects fines. New patrons were added in the past year, 261 new ones, and they deleted 198 from their rolls. So total patrons for the library as of December 31st, 2019 were 5,529. I asked all of these departments for information on trends that they see as well, and you may have noticed within everyone talking about what they see coming up. Trends for the library, they've had a larger attendance at story time and the summer reading program and more programs during the year. While patrons do read ebooks, most patrons still prefer actual books. Computer and Wi-Fi use are about the same as the previous year, and they feel that's because most of their patrons have computers and home internet access. The library has about 60 volunteers, most of whom work shifts of 2 hours every month, shelving books, performing many organizational tasks, both in the workroom and throughout the stacks. Those volunteers are invaluable to the operation at the library, and they couldn't do what they do if they didn't have them, and they're very appreciative of them. The big news is the Friends of Signal Mountain Library, made up of a 15-member board who oversee projects, primarily the Book Nook, which is used in the book sale. Funds raised from sales in the Book Nook are used by Friends to purchase DVDs, provide flowers and wreaths for the entrance and refreshments to the occasional gatherings. They're also involved let's cut right to it. The Mountain Library Foundation, their fundraising arm of the library, is currently preparing to launch a campaign to raise funds for a new reading room and an elevator. We're kind of past the currently preparing point now. They're close. Am I letting the news out too soon? They're close to halfway there. The project, Karen, around $580,000, I believe is what we're looking at. The addition will be located at the rear of the stacks and over the back patio. Access to the new room will be from the current main floor. The room will have shelves on either side and windows looking out toward the backyard with a gas logs fireplace in the middle of the back wall. An elevator will be located near the staircase to the lower level and will be open to the nook area. The addition will afford greater use of the back patio, which will be covered because of it, and it will also have a gas logs fireplace to allow it to be used in cooler weather. The project is expected to cost there it is, around $580,000. Fundraising is approaching halfway. Capital improvement to the library, as in the case of the MAC, adds value to town assets with little to no taxpayer obligation. And we all greatly benefit from the abundant generosity and foresight we see in community members. Fire department information. Signal Mountain Fire Department has 29 full-time personnel, 2 administrative, 27 operation suppression personnel, 3 lieutenants, 9 engineers, 15 firefighters. Thanks to Chief Eric Mitchell for a very thorough report. The operation suppression personnel work a 24-hour schedule divided into 3 9-person shifts. They have an 8-person minimum staffing. There's a lot of data here that I'm going to let you look at when you look at the many charts that are accompanying this without just reading that all to you. It is important to mention some of the things they do. The department personnel completed 120 pre-fire plans of commercial buildings, 258 walkthrough familiarization visits of commercial buildings. Building fire inspector completed 293 primary and follow-up fire safety inspections, all on commercial buildings. Quite a few community risk reduction activities, over 500 hydrant flow tests and flushing activities. In improvements and advancements in the past 2 years, the improvement that has made the highest impact to the community is the opening of Fire Station number 2. With the addition of the station, they've been able to reduce response time to that area by a significant amount. For example, before Station 2, the response time to the middle high school was about 9 to 10 minutes. With Station 2, they can now respond in 4 to 4.5 minutes. Cut it just about in half. And that puts the town in compliance with NFPA and ISO standards and guidelines. The advancement in the department utilizes technology and GIS data that has increased the efficiency in response to emergency incidents, mapping, hydrant locations, and record keeping. Station 2 added 9 personnel to the department. The additional personnel and the second station allows us to handle multiple emergency responses simultaneously. This allows for better service to the community. The salaries for these 9 personnel, that was a big part of the tax increase that was passed by this board for this year. One concern that continues is Signal Mountain Fire Department has the lowest beginning and pay scale in the area. And again, this is something that's going to come up. Entry-level positions are a problem in all of our departments. Fire department personnel actually require more training than police personnel when they come in. There's a high degree of training required to get them, so there's some things that you just can't skimp on. The ever-increasing costs of maintaining certification requirements and the meeting of continuing education hours make it difficult to maintain the training requirements and to offer personnel the ability to seek new certifications. With the addition of Station 2, we have personnel that are expected to operate as supervisors that have not been given the real authority, rank, or pay commensurate with the position that they're expected to perform. This is causing some issues within the department. With the workload on the building code inspectors, the fire department needs a dedicated fire community risk reduction inspector to give the proper amount of time necessary to properly run a fire prevention program. Signal Mountain has been identified as a high-risk community for wildfire due to our widespread wildland-urban interface. In talking with groups from folks from the fire department and folks from the tree board, you know, these are all concerns. We want to maintain our canopy and be careful how we take care of it, but we've all seen what happens when wildfires get out of control. So it's something that we need citizen action and we need involvement in order to make some decisions about how we deal with this going forward. Excuse me. As part of our life safety home survey program, the department began conducting wildland urban interface surveys of residential and commercial properties. It's a small step in what needs to be a larger program where we could partner with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Division of Forestry, in becoming a fire adaptive community, thus reducing the wildfire potential and reducing the potential loss of life. Some very interesting pie charts associated with this about how the services were divided, and you can look at those when these things are posted, but just to hit some of the big ones. The fire department, most of the time they're not putting out fires, which is good, right? 'Cause it would be bad if they were. About 2% of the fire department's time is spent on fires. 55% is spent rescue and emergency. About 8% are false alarms. 21% service calls, and 8% good intent calls. Anyway, I encourage you to download this and take a look at it. It really is interesting reading, more interesting than I'm making it sound, probably. Yeah. If you're interested, you can find out how many people had issues and what percentages of folks had diarrhea to vomiting on the data that we have, if you want to read that.
No.
But I'll skip that for now.
Thank you.
Moving on. The old Signal Mountain Elementary School, the program and space we call the MAC. The number of volunteer hours more than doubled last year to over 2,000 hours, resulting in the renovation of the theater and 3 classrooms. The art room is now a vibrant creative space. Room number 1 is a light and spacious conference room. Room 3 is now complete as a dressing room and a green room space, to be used for the theater. Thank you. All these rooms are also multi-purpose and are available for lessons. During the 2-month renovation of the theater, teachers and students were constantly asking about opportunities, so the interest and the demand for use of this space is high, and it's going to be fun to see how that evolves. The removal of the drop ceiling in the theater revealed the curved ceiling above the stage and large beams that now hold schoolhouse lights again as part of the design. It looks really cool. And there's a play that's going to take place there in a couple of weeks. I leave here and go to rehearsal tonight for Harvey. Citizens have raised nearly $70,000 for an HVAC system for the theater. Installation is planned for March, and the Signal Mountain Elementary Preservation Fund is now raising funds to replace the theater windows with aesthetically and historically accurate versions that will also be energy efficient, and it'll help that room stay in good shape. SMEPF continues to raise funds for mini split units for the remaining classrooms, bathrooms, and offices. As with any building, there will always be things that need to be repaired, but the main hurdles have been cleared. In the coming year, the council will need to examine the methods for utilizing this newly renovated building to its fullest. It's like a new tool that we have. Just want to hit some highlights. Development is something we're all interested in, and these pages will be in the report so you can take a look at it. Chuck and Eric pulled together the numbers for new builds, and that's an interesting read. In general, it's pretty steady. The town of Signal Mountain, the growth is maintained. It's been mostly steady. But if you're wondering, in 2019, we had a total of 467 building permits. Is that correct? 146 building permits. Total number of permits is 467. Just to compare that, that's 2019, 146 building permits, 2018, 121, 2017, 168. So sort of staying in the same ballpark. Just a second. Police Department. Thanks to Mike Williams, who I think just stepped out for the report that he provided.
There he is.
Training's a big deal in the police department, and I think one of the things that, Mike has mentioned this, but it's important to note that when he came on, he had a 5-year plan to straighten out the technology and get things going. They achieved most of what they needed to achieve in 4 years. And so we're at a bit of a stasis point, and things are working, and that's clearly evident by the good work they've done for us recently with some of the surprise events that Signal Mountain Police Department has had to deal with, and did so wonderfully. 780 hours of specialized training for police officers in post. It's required service training. That does not include 492 hours for basic academy training, 19 hours for Lieutenant Knowles in heroin opioid division, 8 hours radar instructor for Sergeant Dean, 120 hours, 40 hours each for crisis intervention training for Sergeant Dean, Fletcher, and Kennedy, 8 hours chemical agent training for Sergeant Dean, 24 hours safety training at the THSO Lifesavers Conference for Lieutenant Fletcher. It's absolutely necessary. It's the kind of thing that maybe seems burdensome almost. But when you need it, you need it. And if we came up lacking during an emergency, we would be complaining because there wasn't enough training. So, trends and issues, external. Thefts, this is ours, this is citizens. Thefts from unlocked vehicles, that's the number one crime problem that the Signal Mountain Police Department is dealing with. They almost always occur after 1 a.m., and it's a problem for all area law enforcement agencies. It's not just Signal Mountain. The police department is using Facebook to continually notify residents to lock their vehicles and take the keys with them inside, as all law enforcement resources available are being put to solving this crime. It's sporadic, but when a rash of this occurs, there can be in excess of 40 reports during a 24-hour period. That's taxing on the police department resources. We can fix this by locking our cars. I mean, still might happen. You might have windows broken, but that's up to us. Results of improvements and advancements in technology, they've been a huge success. They've proven to be very beneficial to our officers and performance of their duties. Our taxes, your taxes, have paid for systems that allow them to access records. It's called an RMS system wirelessly, and it keeps police officers out of the office and in the patrol cars. In their cars, on their way to calls, they can see on their screens before they're dispatched, and that gives them a jump on responding to service requests. They can also run tags for registration information and individual warrants for their cars. The resulting statistical data is invaluable in their planning for manpower allocation and addressing trouble areas. Internal. This past year, the police department had 2 officers retire and 1 resign. As a result, Mike hired 3 new officers. With each successive hire, the applicant pool went down to the point that he only had 2 viable candidates to interview after extending the deadline twice. Mike tried to recruit. He was told by more than one person that he tried to recruit that a big factor was the starting pay. Signal Mountain Police Department is at the bottom of all agencies in Hamilton County as far as starting pay is concerned. This is going to continue to be a problem, and it's something we're going to have to address. You'll be glad to hear these next words. In summary, it's easy to see why Signal Mountain received a Tennessee Municipal League Award for small town progress last year. We operate well for small town. Now that you've heard these lists of numbers, I hope you'll try and visualize all the people in this building and on our streets attempting to keep our town running smoothly. We're in a time where skepticism about even the prospect of government efficiency seems to have hardened into cynicism. These people in this time show up and solve problems every day. And most often we interface with them if something has happened. They're deserving of thanks when things go well, which is most of the time, and deserving of our encouragement when the work becomes overwhelming, sometimes even impossible. Rain falls, sometimes in heavy amounts. Trees topple, water lines break, meters sometimes do get misread. People speed. It's not Mike's fault. He tries to fix it. Much needed entry-level positions remain unfilled in most of our departments. This means we're asking those who do work to work overtime often, and that's sometimes worth it to them. Sometimes they want it, but sometimes they need the break that would come if they didn't need to work overtime because we weren't able to fill our position. The quality of life of our employees is just as important as that of our residents. Up to this point, this address has been about those who work at the behest of the council and the town manager. My final few paragraphs are about us, council and citizens. Having observed this for several years now, I'm convinced the greatest room for improvement for Signal Mountain lies within our boards and our council and our active involvement in local government. This type of government depends on good communication and actively involved citizen governors. We have many board positions that remain open, and that's consistent. It's our responsibility as a council to encourage participation and make the general population aware of the need. Our type of government depends upon this participation. We've seen it spike in that people show up when there's something controversial going on, so we know they're there. Now we need to create an understanding of the necessity, importance of getting involved in the planning process for our town's future. The seeds for the next 100 years are being planted now, and we clearly have growth issues. We have an election that's coming up this year. There'll be 3 positions open, so hopefully folks will start talking about that and considering who's going to run or if who's going to run again. We have creeks that remain polluted with unsafe levels of E. coli after it rains. We have an agreement with wastewater with the WWTA, and the WWTA is struggling. I think if you followed what's happening in the county, their job appears to be mammoth as well. So I'm wondering if it might take a different level of thinking to get us out of the problem that we're into in order to solve some of our creek problems and those things. As I mentioned earlier, we're having a hard time getting anyone to fill our entry-level positions. That's on us. We're going to have to figure that out. It's the town manager's job to keep the town operating smoothly on a day-to-day basis, but it's the council's responsibility to keep an eye on the big picture. And I think we need better methods for planning, not just for ourselves, but ways to involve the entire ridgetop, as we've talked about. It's clear that all the growth we're seeing in the county will have a direct impact on Signal Mountain. The existence of Signal Mountain, I think we always need to remind ourselves of this when we feel like, well, we can't tell them what to do, but the existence of Signal Mountain, the town, adds value to all those homes that are being built out of our town limits. And they probably wouldn't be being built if Signal Mountain and the infrastructure of Signal Mountain didn't exist. So I'm hopeful that this year we, as a council, can make some headway on ways and methods for building mountaintop partnerships that will guide the next 100 years. And I'm open to ideas, and I suspect my fellow council members are too. And that's it. I don't think we need any kind of an action. It's just something we're required to do. I think we did it. Is that 30 minutes? I think we did it. All right. We move on to resolutions. First resolution we have tonight is authorizing our pilot water utility agreement. So Boyd, let me read the resolution and then let Boyd take it from there. A resolution authorizing the distribution of the town of Signal Mountain's water fund in lieu of the ad valorem tax payments on the property of the public works within the town for the water system for the fiscal year 2019-20 in the sum of $33,491. We do this every year. Why?
State law allows that a municipality that operates a utility can charge basically a pilot to offset the cost borne by the town for that operation. And we've done this for the last 6 years, I believe. In each year, it is calculated based on the assets of the utility. Now, other than that, it's consistent year to year. Just some minor changes in the amount, but otherwise, the resolution is almost identical.
Do we hear a motion, and then we can have discussion? Yes.
I'm sorry, there was a small correction in the resolution. Down in the bottom section, and now therefore be it resolved, the second line refers to the town manager of the Signal Mountain Water Fund. We took out the words water fund, so it reads the town manager.
Gotcha.
So if whoever makes the motion would also make that, adopt that change, I appreciate it.
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Do you agree, Bill, to have her suggestions as part of your motion?
Yes.
With no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, we have a resolution by the Signal Mountain Town Council adopting bank form resolutions for the signatures on behalf of the town. This is basically just a list of everyone who needs to be available to sign checks.
Correct. We have to do that each year, and while there's one resolution for us, there are multiple resolutions for the banks. So Carol will schedule a time for you guys to come in and sign about 400 times. Probably more like 12 or so, but still
Yeah.
quite a bit.
All right.
Okay.
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry, who did you? Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone want their name removed from the list?
It's tempting, but no.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'm an aye also on that. Next is do we have actually the resolution? Yeah. So the next is a resolution amending section 11K of the Town of Signal Mountain Personnel Policy relating to nepotism. I think I should probably read these, and then we can talk about why the changes were made. Nepotism is one of those things that we all want to pay close attention to. So here's the current policy. Nepotism, effective for employees hired or promoted after October 1st, 2007, two members of the same family, wife, husband, son-in-law, daughter, daughter-in-law, mother, mother-in-law, father, father-in-law, brother, brother-in-law, sister, sister-in-law, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, step-parent, or stepchild may not work in the same department of the town. And that's what's going to change, just so you know. That's the important part. If the town cannot reasonably transfer one of the family members to another department and the family members can't decide which one will leave voluntarily, then the town manager will determine who is retained in employment of the town. They put a lot of power on the town manager. The new one says the town of Signal Mountain shall not show favoritism in the recruitment of the employment of municipal employees, nor in their supervision. For the purposes of this policy, the term immediate family members shall mean it's basically the same list that I read a moment ago. Immediate family members of the town manager or council members shall not be employed by the town of Signal Mountain. Two members of the same family, as defined above, may work in the same department of the town only if no supervisory/subordinate relationship exists between the parties. That's one of the major changes in that. Individuals currently employed with the town of Signal Mountain are excluded from the above restrictions, except that no future hiring, transfer, or promotion may create an employment scenario contrary to this policy. You have anything you want to add about the wording, Harry or Boyd?
Now, this came about from some of the issues you mentioned. We have been unable to fill positions. We have people that are interested but are related to other employees. In one instance, they would just both be laborers and no supervisory relationship at all. The department head thinks they would be a good employee, would work out fine. Based on the current policy, we can't hire them. One position is a 1 day a week on the weekend position, again with no supervisory relationship with someone else in that department. So we're on one hand trying to loosen it up a little bit, give our department heads some latitude. If they are comfortable with the position and can recommend it, then I could hire them. On the other hand, since I'm the person making this recommendation and you are the body that are approving it, we're strengthening the restrictions associated with the town manager and town council and saying that they can't have family members work for the town, period. As it stands right now, technically I could hire a family member to work in Parks and Rec or anywhere but admin. And with this change, none of my family can be employed. So since I'm recommending it, you guys are doing it, I thought it was important that we strengthen those and just loosen up where we needed to give our department heads some latitude and get some of these positions filled, if appropriate.
I think it's necessary. I've seen photos of Boyd's grandson driving a police car. This precludes that, just so you know.
Can't
You
have
can't hire him. All right, do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any changes need to be made in this? Are we good? Any discussion? Anybody see anything where we might be creating a trap for ourselves somehow? Nope. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Carries 4-0. All right, and the last resolution is a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a water purchase agreement with the Tennessee American Water Company for a term of 60 months beginning February 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2025. This is after multiple meetings. Last year, because the status of the water company was not solid, we just did a one-year extension, and it seemed to be in our best interest that we have a longer contract. So Boyd, if you want to talk about that. I know that Ann Haygood had a question today that seemed reasonable. I have been telling people, I want to make sure I haven't been telling people incorrectly, based on my understanding, that one of the positives of a 5-year contract is that we are locking in a rate, but I might have misunderstood that.
I think locking in might be a little strong. Tennessee American is regulated by TPUC, and thus any agreement has to be approved by them. They technically could tell them they needed to raise rates at a given time. To the extent possible, we have a commitment that our rate is what it has been. We haven't had a guaranteed rate since 2012, when there was a court ruling that set the current rate and everything, but yet it's held steady since then. And I think we have as close to a commitment to do that as possible. One of the things with that, the original agreement that they sent did not have a rate stated in it. And I asked that they change that and put the current rate in there so we would continue at our current rate.
And when was that current rate established?
In 2012.
So we've had rider increases, but not a
The base
per
rate
gallon
has not
rate.
changed since 2012, and that's where we are now.
And in the meetings, the intention that we were given was to keep that locked.
Right. They, again, to the degree possible, I think they're committed to try to keep our rate stable. In fact, prior agreements have looser language than this one does in that regard. So I think we're in a little better position. But we can't get a solid, flat-out fixed rate for that period of time because of the regulatory authority that TPUC has.
So can we entertain a motion and then have council discussion?
Second.
Discussion?
If I may add, just tack on to the end of that, also a change, also a change from their original was a one-year termination. Since it is a 5-year agreement, our last actual agreement was in '97, and it was a 3-year term, and we've just done extensions since then. That 3-year term did not have a termination clause in it. So with the 5-year agreement, they were comfortable trying to hold the rate where it is, but then I asked for a 1-year termination so that if any point there was an issue with that or other opportunities became available for source or anything like that, we would have an option. And given the dynamics of the operation, it would probably take us a year to make a change anyway. So I thought that was an additional safety for us. And if I could, I'd like to draw your attention to section 2C. There are 2 typos that we caught but didn't get changed when they redid it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8th line down that starts year, it's the Signal Mountain. The needs to be gone. And then the line below that, there's reference to 2C, that should be 2D. So those 2 corrections will be made. All the others were corrected when I sent it back to them, but those 2 got missed.
Do we need to rescind and do another motion, Harry? For typos?
No, those are not substantial changes. I think, well, yeah, rescind that motion and somebody ought to move to approve with the 2 changes just pointed out.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And your second?
Oh, and I'll withdraw my second.
So I'd like to move that we approve this resolution with the corrections referenced in section 2.
And I will second that.
All right, other council discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. All right, this is our first reading tonight of an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 2 of the Signal Mountain Town Code entitled Dogs and Cats. And this is up on the town website, I believe.
I believe so.
Believe so. I haven't looked at it on the town website, but just, if you don't mind checking on that, just to make sure tomorrow. So our first reading, we'll have a second reading as well. This kind of an ordinance does not, or does require a public hearing.
No, sir.
Does not require a public hearing, so. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we've discussed this and gone over the
Several
language,
times.
so we're kind of
Yeah.
past that point.
Yeah.
Anybody, anything else to add to it?
Mm-mm.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries on first reading 4-0. The second reading should be at the next council meeting. We have a mid-year budget amendment. This should be under ordinances. Right, Boyd?
No, this is just for your review. As with some other things, I've tried to get things like this pulled together and get to you ahead of a vote. So the first time you're seeing it's not right in advance of you having
So
to
this
make a
is
decision
next
on it. So
time. Okay.
this is for your information, the things that we've identified at this point. A good bit of this is carryover from last year. Vehicles that were ordered didn't come in time, so we need to transfer that to this budget so that we can pay for them. Other things that you have approved, such as additional funds for CTI, and the HVAC and window projects for MAC. Even though they are raising private funds, they will be donated to the town, so we need to budget revenue for the donations and expenditures for the project themselves. The last thing on page 2, if you guys will recall, the backhoe in the water department went down. It's old, needed to be replaced. So instead of spending money on the repairs, we did order a new one. This year we have had in the budget a dump truck. So instead of purchasing the dump truck, we're getting the backhoe. But given the fact that that dump truck is due to be replaced, we're hoping to get through this year, but while we're doing this, council will indulge and we'll budget for that just in case it should go down. We'll be able to move quickly on trying to do something with that, but that does not change the plan that we will try to get through this budget year without making that purchase. But thought it would be advisable to have that in place should something happen and we not have a choice. So just again wanted to introduce this, go over it briefly. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. If anything else comes up between now and the next meeting, I'll make sure you know ahead of the meeting about that, but otherwise we'll have this for action at the next 2 meetings.
Anyone else have anything on this subject?
Oh,
Any questions about this? Questions for Boyd?
no, I have not.
All right. Moving on to, what's that? The 10th?
For, right, that, when we get to other business.
Okay.
Which I think we're probably about there.
We're about there. Tentative agenda. just some general topics to toss out there. It was good talking to department heads. And I didn't, finance department's one department that I didn't talk to, but her report was so thorough. And she had also just gotten a multi-star rating from an audit, so yeah, we kind of had current information. But some things that I learned in talking to the department heads, the big concerns were that entry level pay thing. I think we need to compile some information so that we can see that statistically, and that's on you guys to do that. And you did some of that last year when we were talking about taxes, but I mean, I don't think we can be, this is this opinion part, I don't think we can even whisper. I can't imagine that we would consider a tax increase this year. So as we head into budgets, we've got to figure out how to deal with this, because it is a problem, and it's not fair to the employees we have for them to not have enough people in their departments doing what they have, unless we're trying to do too much. And so maybe that's part of their discussion as well. Second, I think we need to consider raising the expense amount per department, that the amount of money that they can spend on items that need to be repaired before they have to come to council. And it'd be nice just to know what other towns do. So if we could get a report on how that generally works. But we have so many times where if something breaks and they need to get a transmission fixed quickly, or they need to get something done on a vehicle that we know we're going to fix, it slows the process down too much, and we have things that sit aside that end up not getting done. And second, you have situations where on the ball fields, for instance, if someone, like a Jared, needs to buy piles of dirt or sand or something like that, and he has to get 4 trailer loads, well, the 4 trailer loads will go over, the amount, even though it's the same thing over and over again, but it's something we know we're going to have to purchase. So anyway, I'd just like to look at that. Maybe it's a bad idea, because the downside is, if you have people able to buy big ticket items without approval, but then that's what falls back on the manager to say whether or not he still has to
Most
approve
of that
them.
would fall to me, anyway, I mean, at that level.
Right.
And generally, the government standard is 10,000 or 25,000.
And what are we at?
10. So any time you're up in that level, it would, at $9,999, I approve that. Anything over $1,500, I have to approve. So that's the world we live in. A lot of municipalities have gone to the $25,000 level, and I think adjusted the others to some degree as well. But
Is that $1,500 limit a problem, even though it's below the 10,000 ever? Does that slow things down that Loretta, maybe if she needs, to buy a part
if
for,
that slows things down, it could be a day or two.
okay,
But if they call and say, here's the deal, and I need this right now, it's literally filling out a purchase requisition, me signing that, getting a purchase order, and signing that. It's not terribly cumbersome.
yeah. So that 10 and 25,000 doesn't mean we would have to jump from 10 to 25, right? I mean, we could have a policy that's somewhere in between.
As far as I know.
So anyway, if we could.
I'm just,
Yeah.
those are generally the two standards.
And my other question for, I guess maybe this is other business. Anybody else have any other tentative agenda items? When do budget talks begin?
We're starting to work on budget now, and that was the question we had when Carol compiled the budget calendar. The day that, based on our prior calendars, that our budget meeting, the big budget meeting would fall, would be May 25th. That happens to be Memorial Day, which also happens to be the day of our regular meeting for the last half of the second meeting in May. So that's why we wanted to bring that up, and obviously we have a little bit of time, but see if council, obviously I would imagine you don't want to meet on Memorial Day. If we could, the possibility of perhaps shifting to the week prior to that and meeting on Wednesday or something like that in lieu of that meeting for our budget meeting. But wanted to, as we just identified that, get it on your radar as quickly as possible and see what your thoughts were.
As a reminder, that budget meeting is usually a long term, many hours.
That's an all-day, that's the all-day meeting. Yeah.
So you're asking about possibly meeting the 18th?
I think that sounds about right.
I'm not sure that's going to be a good day for me.
Actually, it's the 20th.
He mentioned Wednesday.
A Wednesday.
Wednesday, May, is May the 20th.
That would work for me.
To work for you,
works. Yeah.
Bill?
Mhm.
I'm going to put tentative, and I guess we can vote on that next week, or do you guys want to make that decision now? We can, it's not, doesn't require.
Maybe we should make sure it works for
Just
Amy.
check with Amy, yeah. Now, did I follow correctly? Are we saying that that's tentatively our all-day meeting as well? Followed by a council meeting in the night?
No, I think we were, my thought was we would do that meeting in lieu of the second meeting that month.
Oh. You don't want to have another meeting
I will,
after being with us all day
I
long?
will be here whenever
Sure
you
you
want me to be here.
Yeah. And but we are not, we're definitely canceling the Memorial Day meeting. Council meeting. Are you guys cool with that?
Yes.
We have consensus? All right. All right, anything else? You have other business?
No, sir.
Did you call for other business?
Yes, other business.
Okay, in response to Boyd's email relative to short-term rental, I responded that I would like to see us have a special meeting, or to, at the very least, invite our state rep and state senator to visit with us on the subject of the state's short-term rental legislation as it relates to the ordinance that we passed. The short-term rental, where we had an issue, was not affected by our ordinance, and the only other two short-term rentals I'm aware of are also grandfathered. But there is a way that the legislature can be amenable to perhaps excluding us from that, and we've done that a couple of times, Bo, over the years. One was with respect to the council, by a majority vote, appointing planning commission members versus the mayor alone. And they accomplished that by tying the town to our population on a particular date prior to. And we were the only municipality in the state that happened to have that population on that given date. So, I mean, I'm just concerned this is a huge accident waiting to happen without the ability to regulate those grandfathered properties, that we would be irresponsible if we didn't make some effort to address it. So I'd just like to toss out there that if there's any way that we can try to invite our representatives to visit with us on the subject, or if somebody has a better idea of how
Yeah,
to
do you
go about
want
doing
to,
it.
do you want to approach Bo and Patsy and just see if you can?
I'd be glad to do that. They'd probably listen to you, though, before they listen to me.
I mean, I'd be glad to as well.
And I would be happy to as well. Just let me know what you want me
No,
to
I
do.
mean, however you think that's best handled. When is the legislative time that we're headed up there? Isn't that soon?
Relatively.
I think we may be going. It seems to me like that's just within a week or two. Isn't that in February usually?
I think it's in March.
Probably want to. Would you mind putting your general idea down in a paragraph or two and emailing it to all the council members, and then I'll pick it up from there just to make sure I'm not misrepresenting what you're saying?
Okay.
March 16th.
March 16th. Be nice to have a conversation before then.
And we are continuing to work on the list of those. We've mailed out, I think, 6 registration packets, the ones that we've identified, and have more to go, but it's rather involved. It's not easy to get they don't tell you exactly where they're located, so, but we've made some progress on that and gotten those mailed out. Obviously, haven't gotten any back yet, but
Well,
it's in the process.
Refresh my memory on because it's been a while since we talked about that on the planning commission. What is the length of time that one needed to be in business of a short-term rental, according to the state, to be grandfathered?
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they had to have paid taxes 6 of 12 months ahead of us passing the ordinance.
Of us passing, not the
Right,
state.
not the state.
And what was the date that we passed ours?
It was in June.
Of this past year?
Mm-hmm.
And the home that was the recent issue, and boy, did Facebook blow up over that one. It was handled so well, too. My understanding is that home was just purchased by those folks like last April. Is that correct? So they're not grandfathered, right?
I don't know when they began operating that one.
No, I'm talking about them actually purchasing the home.
They purchased it, if they purchased it prior to, which they did, the record shows in April, we passed, I think, on June 28th.
Right.
I think it was June. It was in June sometimes when we passed our thing. If they paid taxes within that, state taxes within that time period, it appears that they're grandfathered in on, but that would seem to conflict with the 6 of 12 months, because you
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
possibly
the
do that.
Yeah,
problem.
that's what I'm
6 of
thinking.
12 months. How could they have paid 6 of 12 months
On a property they did
when
not
they hadn't
own.
owned it? Now, whether they could tack on to their prior owner, I don't know. I don't think so.
I doubt
But
that, yeah, I doubt that.
But they couldn't, yeah.
They could look at it.
Yeah.
And we've had some discussion and debate as to the verbiage in the state law and exactly what the trigger is and everything. It has been very difficult to try to figure that out and put the packet together and require of them what's required while not getting out of bounds of state law. And it's one of the things we've struggled with. It's taken a while to get all that together and start
Okay.
getting these things sent out. Because even some folks at the state, you will get different answers from.
Right.
We found that out. And then just finding out how to get that information. The state says if they have done this, you have to grandfather them.
Yeah.
And then when you ask them, okay, how do we find that out? They said, well, we have that information, but we won't give it to you. So you have to ask them to get the information from us, and then they will give it to you. It's been an interesting process. So it's taken a while, but we are well underway in getting all those out and identifying as many as we can.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
No.
You still have the meeting scheduled with WRUD?
I'm gonna get with Ron this week. As far as I know, they were available for that. I have confirmation from 4 of our members, so I think we will schedule that for the 25th of next month.
We don't have enough members right now on our personnel committee to have a quorum, and we need to hire a water director. And
That has
won't,
nothing to do with the Personnel Committee.
wouldn't. Explain that.
They don't approve hiring.
Okay. Or recommendations.
No, sir.
Okay. Didn't understand that. We still don't have enough members on the personnel committee, so we need some.
That is a very valid point.
That's very, yeah.
Yes.
So.
Oh,
Okay.
We need 3? Are we down? There are
Mhm.
3 openings there?
Right.
Okay.
I have talked to some folks, but haven't got any applications in yet.
So, we're about to wrap up, but I'm gonna bring up one that I brought up before again, because I think it's part of our solution, and I'm gonna have to have Harry help me with this one, I think. The Tennessee state law allows us to have an online forum where you can discuss, council members can discuss matters. It's written into the Open Records Act. I've wanted to set that up ever since I got involved with this thing. The opinion I keep getting from the state comptroller's office is that, well, you can have it, but you can't talk about anything you might vote on. That's ridiculous. It means you can't use it because you don't know what you might be able to vote on. I talked with, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, the guy who made the presentation at the last MTAS meeting we went to.
The legal?
Yeah, the legal department.
Chad?
It was Chad. Chad says the comptroller's office is wrong. And we need to put some pressure on them, and apparently I am no pressure. Because when I write them, they write me back and they say, no, this is our ruling. You can't do this and talk about anything. But I think that forum, if we can set that up, solves the communication problems between the boards. Because that's the place where you put draft minutes. That's the place where you talk about what happened. That's open. Everyone can see what's happening, so you're not in violation of the Sunshine Law.
Who is everyone?
Anyone who's a
public?
town resident can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to allow anyone who's a resident to be involved in
To
it.
view,
Huh?
to view it.
To view it, not to participate.
Not to comment.
But all the board members can participate in this thing. And I think that's a big solution to what we need so that people know what's going on. And so, anyway, Harry, would you look at that?
I will.
Because I'm getting nowhere. All right. Anything else?
Yep.
I'm about to pound this thing. We're
Pound.
adjourned.